The Montana winter struck with the fury of a wounded grizzly, hurling snow and ice across Sam Crawford's ranch like God's own punishment. He pulled his coat tighter as he fought through the knee-deep drifts toward the barn, the wind howling so fierce it seemed to tear the breath from his lungs. The cattle would need extra feed if they were going to survive this blizzard, and Sam had already lost too much this year to let nature claim what little he had left. His boots crunched through the frozen crust as he wrestled the barn door open, ice crystals stinging his weathered face. The familiar smell of hay and leather greeted him, along with something else, something that made him pause. There was a presence here, a wrongness that set his nerves on edge. Sam's hand instinctively moved to the colt at his hip, a habit carved deep by 20 years of frontier living. "I know you're in there," he called out, his voice cutting through the storm's roar. "Come out slow and peaceful and we can talk." A rustling came from the far corner, near where he stored the winter feed. Then a voice, trembling and desperate, broke the tense silence. "Please, senor, I mean no harm. I am just cold." Sam squinted into the shadows, making out a figure huddled against the hay bales. As his eyes adjusted, he saw what appeared to be a heavy-set man in ragged clothes, shivering violently. But something about the voice, the way the stranger held himself, didn't sit right. "You picked a hell of a night to be out in this weather," Sam said, keeping his distance but letting his hand fall away from his gun. "You running from something or just unlucky?" The figure shifted, and Sam caught a glimpse of dark eyes filled with terror and exhaustion. "Please, Senor Crawford, I heard in town that you are different from the others, that you might—" The voice broke, overcome with emotion. "How do you know my name?" Sam stepped closer, lantern light dancing across the stranger's face. There was something feminine about the features, despite the rough clothing and what appeared to be considerable bulk around the midsection. "I have been watching, waiting for the right time. Deputy Morrison, he is looking for me. He wants to—" The stranger's voice dissolved into sobs. "Please, I beg of you. I cannot continue like this. Please, take them off." Sam frowned, confusion mixing with growing concern. "Take what off?" The stranger's hands moved to their chest, fumbling with the layers of clothing. "These bindings, this padding. I cannot breathe anymore. I've been hiding for so long, and I am so tired of pretending to be what I am not." Understanding began to dawn on Sam, and he felt his pulse quicken. This wasn't what it appeared to be at all. "Ma'am," he said softly, "are you telling me you've been disguised as a man?" A nod came through the tears. "My name is Maria Elena Vasquez. I fled from Mexico with my sister Rosa, but they caught her. Morrison has her, and he will kill her if he finds me too. I have been living as a man, gaining weight, binding myself, anything to hide who I am." Sam set his lantern on a hay bale and crouched down to her level. In the flickering light, he could see the desperation etched in every line of her face. Her dark hair was roughly cut and dirty, her clothes several sizes too large and stuffed with what looked like rags and cloth padding. "How long have you been living like this?" he asked. 3 months, Maria Elena whispered. "Ever since they took Rosa. I tried to follow them, but Morrison's men were everywhere. So I hid. I disguised myself. I became invisible. But now—" She looked down at the elaborate disguise that had become her prison. "I am dying inside this lie." The wind hammered against the barn walls, and Sam found himself making a decision that would change everything. "All right, Maria Elena, let me help you. But first you need to tell me exactly what Morrison did to your sister and why he's hunting you." Maria Elena's eyes met his, and in them Sam saw a story of loss and courage that would soon pull him into a conflict he never could have imagined. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the barn, 2 souls had found each other in the darkness, and nothing would ever be the same. Sam helped Maria Elena remove the heavy padding and tight bindings that had hidden her true form for months. As the layers fell away, he could see the physical and emotional toll her disguise had taken, angry red marks where the cloth had chafed her skin, the hollow look of someone who had forgotten how to breathe freely. "There's a horse blanket here," Sam said, turning away to give her privacy as she adjusted her torn shirt. "It's clean enough. You can wrap yourself while your clothes dry by the fire in the house." "You would bring me into your home?" Maria Elena's voice carried disbelief. "But I am Mexican and you are—" "I'm a man who knows what it's like to lose everything," Sam replied quietly. "My wife died 2 winters ago, and I learned real quick that grief doesn't care about the color of your skin or where you were born." As they made their way through the driving snow toward the ranch house, Maria Elena began to tell her story. Her voice was barely audible over the wind, but Sam caught every word. "My family owned a small ranch in Sonora," she began, accepting Sam's steadying arm as they navigated the icy ground. Nothing grand, but it had good water and fertile soil. My father, he raised the finest horses in the region. That was our mistake, being too successful. Inside the warmth of Sam's modest home, she continued her tale while he stoked the fire. The orange flames cast dancing shadows across her face, highlighting the pain in her dark eyes. There was a man, Colonel Herrera, who worked with corrupt officials in Mexico City. They had a scheme: identify prosperous landowners, accuse them of crimes, then seize their property. When my father refused to sell our ranch for a fraction of its worth, Herrera declared him a revolutionary. Sam poured coffee from the pot he kept perpetually brewing and handed her a steaming cup. Let me guess, they didn't bother with a trial. They came at dawn, Maria Elena whispered, her hands trembling around the warm mug. Rosa and I hid in the root cellar while they murdered our parents in their own bedroom. We could hear everything, every shot, every scream. When it was quiet, we ran. We took nothing but the clothes on our backs and headed north. How did you make it this far? We had help at first, other families fleeing the same persecution, but as we got closer to the border, the journey became more dangerous. There were bandits and then there were the bounty hunters. Sam leaned forward in his chair. Bounty hunters, men who make money capturing refugees and selling us back to the Mexican authorities. Some do it officially, others— Maria Elena's voice hardened. Others, like Deputy Morrison, do it for profit while pretending to uphold American law. The name hit Sam like a physical blow. Jack Morrison had been causing trouble in the territory for months, but Sam had assumed it was just the usual corruption, skimming money, taking bribes. This was something far worse. Morrison caught Rosa 3 months ago, Maria Elena continued. I watched from a hillside as his men surrounded our camp. She fought like a wildcat, but there were too many of them. I heard him tell her that she'd bring a good price from Colonel Herrera's associates in El Paso. And you've been searching for her ever since? I tried to follow, but Morrison's men were hunting me too, so I disappeared. I cut my hair, bound my chest, padded my clothes. I became Miguel Vasquez, a fat, slow-witted man who worked odd jobs and slept in barns. I thought if I could get close to Morrison's operation, I could find Rosa and free her. Sam studied her face in the firelight. Despite the months of hardship and disguise, he could see the beauty that no amount of padding could truly hide. The elegant line of her neck, the intelligence burning in her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw that spoke of courage forged in tragedy. What changed? He asked. Why reveal yourself now? Because I learned the truth today, Maria Elena said, her voice breaking. Morrison isn't just holding Rosa. He's planning to transport a group of prisoners south next week. If I don't act now, I'll never see her again. Outside, the blizzard continued to rage, but inside Sam's small home, a different kind of storm was brewing. He looked at this brave woman who had sacrificed everything to save her sister, and made a decision that would pit him against one of the most dangerous men in the territory. Then we'd better figure out how to get her back, he said simply. Maria Elena stared at him in amazement. You would help me? Even knowing what it could cost you? Sam stood and walked to the window, watching the snow swirl in the darkness. Lady, I've been dead inside for 2 years. Maybe it's time I remembered what it feels like to fight for something that matters. The storm broke just before dawn, leaving the world buried under 3 feet of pristine snow. Sam stood at his kitchen window, watching the sun paint the drifts gold and pink, while Maria Elena slept fitfully on his couch. She tossed and turned all night, crying out in Spanish, words that sounded like prayers and pleas. He was brewing fresh coffee when the sound of approaching horses cut through the morning silence. Sam's blood turned to ice as he recognized the lead rider, Deputy Jack Morrison, his badge gleaming against his black coat like a predator's fang. Maria Elena, Sam whispered urgently, shaking her awake. Get to the back room now. Morrison's here. Her eyes snapped open, instantly alert. Did he see me come here? I don't think so, but we can't take chances. Sam helped her to her feet, noticing how different she looked without the bulky disguise, smaller, more vulnerable, but somehow stronger too. Stay quiet no matter what you hear. The heavy knock on his door came just as Maria Elena disappeared into the bedroom. Sam took a deep breath, composed his face into a mask of mild irritation, and opened the door. Morrison, he said, not bothering to hide his dislike. Little early for a social call, isn't it? Deputy Jack Morrison was a man built like a bull, with pale eyes that seemed to calculate the worth of everything they saw. Behind him rode 2 of his usual associates, Hard men who wore their cruelty like a second skin. "Crawford," Morrison said, not bothering to dismount. "We're tracking a fugitive. Mexican, probably armed and dangerous. You seen anyone suspicious around your spread? In this weather? Hell, Morrison, I can barely see my own barn from here. What's this fugitive supposed to have done?" Morrison's smile was thin and cold. "Murder, robbery, the usual. There's a substantial reward for information leading to capture." He paused, letting the words sink in. $500, Crawford. That's more than your ranch will see in profit this year. Sam kept his expression neutral, but inwardly he was calculating. $500 meant Morrison was desperate to find Maria Elena, and that desperation made him even more dangerous. "I'll keep my eyes open," Sam said. "But like I said, ain't nobody been through here." "Funny thing," Morrison continued, his voice taking on a conversational tone that fooled nobody. "Old Pete at the general store mentioned seeing a heavy-set Mexican man asking questions about you last week. Said this fellow seemed mighty interested in whether you were the type to help folks in trouble." Sam's heart hammered against his ribs, but he forced himself to shrug. "Pete sees a lot of things that ain't there when he's been at the bottle. You know that." "Maybe." Morrison finally dismounted, his boots crunching in the snow. "Mind if I take a look around? Just to be thorough." "Actually, I do mind," Sam replied, stepping into the doorway to block Morrison's path. "This is my property, and you don't have a warrant." The two men stared at each other for a long moment, the tension crackling between them like electricity before a lightning strike. Sam could see Morrison's hand resting on his gun butt, and he knew the deputy was looking for any excuse to escalate the situation. "You know, Crawford," Morrison said slowly, "I've always wondered how a man like you manages to keep this place running. Lost your wife, got no hands, cattle dying off every winter? Makes a man wonder if you might be supplementing your income somehow." "Meaning what, exactly?" "Meaning there's good money in helping the right people disappear, and there's even better money in making sure they don't." Sam felt his temper flare but kept his voice level. "I think you've said your piece, Morrison. Time for you to get off my land." Morrison remounted his horse, but his pale eyes never left Sam's face. "This fugitive we're after, Crawford, she's more dangerous than you might think. Killed her own parents back in Mexico, they say. Cut their throats while they slept." The lie was so brazen, so calculated to poison any sympathy, that Sam almost lunged forward. Instead, he gripped the doorframe until his knuckles went white. "That's a hell of a story," he managed. "Story's got an ending, too," Morrison continued. "We're moving our prisoners south next Tuesday. After that, this particular problem won't be anyone's concern anymore." He touched the brim of his hat in mock courtesy. "Good day, Crawford. Try to stay out of trouble." Sam watched the three riders disappear over the ridge before allowing himself to breathe normally again. When he turned back into the house, Maria Elena was standing in the bedroom doorway, her face pale but determined. "You heard?" he asked. "Every word." Her jaw was set with quiet fury. "He said I murdered my parents. Made me into a monster to justify what he's done. That's what men like Morrison do," Sam replied grimly. "They tell lies so often they start believing them themselves." Maria Elena walked to the window, staring out at the pristine snow that would soon be marked by tracks and stained with blood if they weren't careful. "Tuesday," she murmured. 4 days to save Rosa and expose Morrison for what he really is. Sam joined her at the window. "We'll need help, and we'll need to be smarter than Morrison expects. There is someone," Maria Elena said slowly. "Father Miguel at the mission church. He's been helping refugees quietly, and he knows things about Morrison's operation that could help us." "That's a start," Sam agreed. "But first we need to scout Morrison's jail and find out exactly where he's keeping your sister." Maria Elena turned to face him, and Sam was struck again by the fierce determination in her dark eyes. This woman had survived murder, persecution, and months of living as someone else entirely. She wouldn't be easily broken. "Thank you," she said simply, "for believing me, for helping me." Sam nodded, already beginning to formulate a plan. "Don't thank me yet. We've got 4 days to pull off something that could get us all killed." Outside, fresh snow began to fall, as if the sky itself was trying to cover the tracks of what was coming. The mission church sat like a shadow against the star-filled sky, its adobe walls scarred by years of frontier weather. Sam and Maria Elena approached on foot, having left their horses a quarter-mile back in a grove of cottonwoods. The Sunday evening service had ended hours ago, but warm light still flickered in the priest's quarters. "Father Miguel?" Maria Elena called softly at the small side door. The door opened to reveal an elderly Mexican man with kind eyes and work-worn hands. His face broke into a mixture of relief and concern when he saw her. "Maria Elena, gracias a Dios. I feared Morrison had found you." His gaze shifted to Sam, taking in the rancher's weathered features and the gun at his hip. "And you brought help." "Sam Crawford," Sam said, extending his hand. "Maria Elena tells me you've been helping folks like her." Father Miguel nodded gravely as he ushered them inside. "Come, we have much to discuss and little time. I received word today that Morrison plans to move his prisoners tomorrow night. Not Tuesday, as he told you." Maria Elena's face went white. "Tomorrow? But we're not ready." "It's a trap," Father Miguel interrupted. "Morrison suspects someone is planning a rescue. He spread the Tuesday story to flush out anyone who might be helping you." Sam cursed under his breath. Morrison was craftier than he'd given him credit for. "Where is he keeping them?" "In the old mining office 2 miles east of town. It's perfect for his purposes. Isolated, solid walls, only one way in or out." The priest moved to a rough wooden table where a hand-drawn map was spread out. "But I have been watching. There are usually only 2 guards at night and they drink heavily." "What about Rosa?" Maria Elena asked, her voice tight with worry. "Is she hurt?" Father Miguel's hesitation told them everything. "She is alive. But Morrison has not been gentle with his prisoners. She will need medical attention when you free her." Sam studied the map, noting the terrain around the mining office. It was indeed a fortress, perched on a rocky outcrop with clear views in all directions. Approaching unseen would be nearly impossible. "There's something else," Father Miguel continued reluctantly. "Morrison has been asking questions about you, Signor Crawford. He knows someone helped Maria Elena, and he's narrowing down the possibilities." "Let him come," Sam replied grimly. "I've dealt with men like Morrison before." "But not like this," the priest insisted. "He has connections that go all the way to Mexico City. If he can't kill you legally, he'll find another way." A sudden hammering on the church's main door made them all freeze. The pounding was aggressive, insistent, the kind of knock that demanded immediate response. "Father Miguel," Morrison's voice boomed through the wooden doors. "Open up, official business." "The back window," Father Miguel whispered urgently, pointing toward a small opening behind the altar. "Go, quickly." But as Sam and Maria Elena moved toward their escape route, they heard the scrape of boots on the roof above. Morrison had surrounded the building. "Might as well come out peaceful-like," Morrison called. "We know you're in there, Crawford. You too, Lady Killer." Sam's jaw clenched at the repeated lie about Maria Elena's supposed crimes. He looked at her, seeing the fear and determination warring in her dark eyes. "I won't let him take you," he said quietly. "And I won't let you die for me," she replied. Father Miguel moved toward the main door, his face set with grim resolve. "I'll tell him I'm alone. Perhaps—" "No." Maria Elena stepped out of the shadows, her chin raised defiantly. "I'm tired of hiding, tired of running. If Morrison wants me, he can face me directly." Sam caught her arm. "Maria Elena, don't trust me," she said, pressing something small and cold into his hand. It was a key. "Rosa taught me this hiding place when we were children. The old well behind the mining office. There's a loose stone at the base marked with a cross. When you find Rosa, tell her Maria remembers the games we used to play." Before Sam could stop her, Maria Elena walked to the door and threw it open. Morrison stood there with 4 of his men, all armed and ready for trouble. "Well, well," Morrison said, his pale eyes gleaming with triumph. "If it isn't our little murderess, though I have to say, you clean up better than I expected." "My name is Maria Elena Vasquez," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the night air. "And I am not afraid of you." Morrison's smile was cruel. "You should be. Killing your parents was bad enough, but now you've corrupted a good American rancher. That's going to cost extra." Sam stepped into the doorway beside Maria Elena, his hand resting on his gun. "The only corruption here is yours, Morrison. How much does Colonel Herrera pay you for each person you send south?" For just a moment, surprise flickered across Morrison's face. Then his expression hardened. "That's a serious accusation, Crawford. I hope you can prove it." "I can," Father Miguel said, emerging from behind them with a thick leather portfolio. "Every transaction, every payment, every innocent person you've sold back to their murderers, it's all here." Morrison's composure finally cracked. "Take them all," he snarled to his men, "and burn this place down while you're at it." But as his men moved forward, the night suddenly erupted in gunfire from 3 different directions. Father Miguel's flock, the refugees he'd been quietly helping, had surrounded the church. These were people who'd lost everything to men like Morrison, and they fought with the desperate fury of those who had nothing left to lose. In the chaos that followed, Sam grabbed Maria Elena's hand and ran. Behind them, the church bells began to toll, Father Miguel's signal to every sympathetic soul in the territory that the time for hiding was over. "The mining office!" Maria Elena shouted over the gunfire. "We have to reach Rosa before Morrison's men get word." They ran through the darkness toward 2 horses Father Miguel had hidden in the cottonwoods, while behind them the night burned with righteous anger. The real war had finally begun. The old mining office squatted against the rocky hillside like a wounded beast, its barred windows glowing with lamplight. Sam and Maria Elena crouched behind a cluster of boulders 50 yards away, watching the 2 guards pass a bottle between them. The distant sound of gunfire from town carried on the cold night air. Father Miguel's uprising was keeping Morrison's attention divided. "There," Maria Elena whispered, pointing to a stone well partially hidden behind the building. "That's where Rosa and I used to hide our treasures when Papa brought us here as children. He had business with the mine owner sometimes." Sam studied the guards through his field glasses. Both men were drunk enough to be careless but sober enough to be dangerous. "We'll need a distraction, something to draw them away from the door. I have an idea." Maria Elena began gathering dry brush and dead wood from around their hiding spot. "Start a small fire upwind of the building. When the smoke reaches them, they'll think someone's trying to smoke them out. They'll come looking." It was a good plan, but risky. If the guards decided to shoot first and investigate later, it would all be over. Sam struck a match and touched it to the kindling Maria Elena had arranged. Within minutes, thick smoke began drifting toward the mining office. "Fuego! Fire!" one of the guards shouted in Spanish, stumbling out the front door. His partner followed, both men clutching their rifles and peering into the darkness. Sam and Maria Elena waited until the guards moved past their position, then sprinted for the building. The front door stood open, revealing a dimly lit interior divided into makeshift cells by iron bars salvaged from the old mine. "Rosa!" Maria Elena called softly. "Rosa, where are you?" A weak voice answered from the shadows. "Maria? Maria, is that really you?" They found Rosa in the farthest cell, chained to the wall like an animal. She was painfully thin, her dark hair matted, her clothes torn and dirty, but her eyes still burned with the same fierce spirit as her sister's. "I knew you'd come," Rosa whispered, as Maria Elena fumbled with the key she'd given Sam. "I told them you'd never abandon me." The key turned and Rosa collapsed into her sister's arms. Sam kept watch at the door while the sisters clung to each other, tears streaming down both their faces. "Can you walk?" Maria Elena asked gently. "I'll crawl if I have to," Rosa replied with fierce determination. "Just get me out of here." But as they helped Rosa to her feet, the thunder of approaching horses cut through the night. Morrison's voice carried across the distance, barking orders to his men. "Back door," Sam said urgently. "There has to be another way out." They found a narrow window in the rear wall, just wide enough for them to squeeze through. Sam went first, then helped the sisters climb out into the cold night air. Rosa was weaker than she'd admitted, and Maria Elena had to support most of her weight. "The well," Rosa whispered. "There's a cache hidden there, papers that prove Morrison's been selling information to Colonel Herrera's men." They reached the old stone well just as Morrison's men surrounded the front of the building. Sam found the loose stone Rosa had mentioned, marked with a crude cross carved years ago by 2 little girls playing their secret games. Inside the hollow space, wrapped in oilcloth, was a collection of documents that would destroy Morrison's operation forever. Letters from Herrera, payment receipts, lists of refugees Morrison has captured, Rosa explained weakly. "I stole them from his saddlebags the night he caught me. I knew someday they'd be needed." The sound of boots on gravel made them all freeze. Morrison appeared around the corner of the building, his gun drawn and his face twisted with rage. "End of the line," he snarled. "Though I have to admit you've caused me more trouble than any 10 women should be able to." "It's over, Morrison," Sam said, standing protectively in front of the sisters. "Half the territory knows what you've been doing. Father Miguel's got evidence, and now we have Rosa's proof too." Morrison laughed bitterly. "Evidence? Who's going to believe a Mexican priest and a couple of refugee women over a sworn deputy? I'll be out of jail in a week, and you'll all be dead in unmarked graves." "Maybe," said a new voice from the darkness. "But first, you'll have to explain things to a federal marshal." Marshal William Hayes stepped into the lamplight, his badge glinting and his rifle trained on Morrison. Behind him came a dozen armed men, not Morrison's corrupt associates, but honest settlers and townspeople who'd finally had enough. "Marshal Hayes," Morrison blustered. "Thank God you're here. These people are dangerous fugitives." "Save it, Jack." Hayes's voice was cold as winter steel. "We've been investigating your operation for months. Father Miguel's evidence, combined with what these ladies have provided, is more than enough to hang you." Morrison's face went through a series of emotions: disbelief, anger, and finally desperate calculation. Sam saw the deputy's grip shift on his gun and knew what was coming. "Look out!" Sam shouted, diving toward Maria Elena and Rosa as Morrison's gun roared. The shot went wild and Morrison never got a chance for a second one. Marshal Hayes's rifle spoke once and Morrison crumpled to the ground. His reign of terror finally ended. In the sudden silence that followed, Rosa struggled to sit up. "Is it over?" she asked weakly. "It's over," Maria Elena replied, holding her sister close. "We're free." 3 weeks later, Sam Crawford stood on his front porch, watching Maria Elena and Rosa tend to the small garden they'd planted behind the house. The sisters had decided to stay in Montana, at least for now. Rosa was recovering her strength, and Maria Elena had found work helping Father Miguel establish a proper refugee assistance program. The territorial governor had personally thanked them for exposing Morrison's corruption, and Colonel Herrera had been arrested by Mexican federal authorities. The Underground Railroad that had brought so much suffering was finally broken. Sam smiled as he watched Maria Elena laugh at something Rosa said. The sound was like music after the long silence that had filled his home since his wife's death. He was learning to live again, and perhaps more importantly, he was learning to hope. The Wild West was still a hard place, full of danger and uncertainty, but it was also a place where justice could triumph, where the courage of good people could overcome the schemes of evil ones, and where two souls who had lost everything could find each other and build something new from the ashes of their grief. As the sun set over the Montana Territory, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Sam Crawford knew that the best chapters of his story were still to come.